Something changes inside a woman as she nears 40, a quiet storm that no one warns you about. One day she's packing lunches, doing laundry, and scrolling through family vacation spots, and the next she's on a treadmill posting gym selfies, downloading dating apps, and texting some man who gives her butterflies. You look at her and wonder what just happened to your wife. It's not rare, it's everywhere. Men across the world watch their steady, dependable partners morph into someone unrecognizable, someone chasing the same excitement she once looked down on. And the world acts surprised, as if this shift wasn't written into her biology all along. You think the woman who built a life with you, raised your kids, and shared your dreams is immune to this transformation. She's not. Somewhere between 35 and 45, a woman's psychology hits a wall. And when that moment comes, it's not gradual, it's explosive. The woman who once found fulfillment in her home, her family, and your love begins craving validation the way a drowning person craves air. Her self-worth, long tied to her beauty, starts to collapse the second her reflection no longer matches the image burned into her memory. She doesn't see age, she sees loss, the loss of being noticed, of being desired, of feeling powerful in her femininity. Panic sets in, and with it, a hunger for proof that she's still wanted. And that proof never comes from you, because your love feels expected, guaranteed. It comes from the stranger who looks at her like she's still 25. That's when everything changes, not because she stopped loving you, but because she stopped recognizing herself. 1. The identity collapse. When a woman crosses the invisible threshold between 35 and 40, she doesn't just age, she begins to unravel. It's not physical first, it's psychological. The image she's built her identity around for decades begins to crumble quietly, piece by piece. Her reflection in the mirror becomes a reminder that time isn't on her side anymore. The compliments that once flowed easily start to fade, replaced with polite smiles and distant courtesy. She starts noticing the absence of male attention more than its presence, and that absence hits harder than she'll ever admit. What most men don't realize is that women are raised in a world where their worth is measured in how desired they are. From her teenage years, she was told, explicitly and subtly, that beauty equals value. Every look, every compliment, every flirtation from a man built her sense of self. For 20 years, this validation was her oxygen. Now that supply starts to thin out. The first sign is her restlessness. She'll start changing her hair, her wardrobe, her habits. She'll tell herself she's just taking care of herself, but deep down, it's panic disguised as self-improvement. She's trying to reclaim the attention that used to come effortlessly. When it doesn't, her mind begins to fracture between who she was and who she's becoming. The woman who used to feel admired now feels invisible, and invisibility to her is death. The cruel part is that she doesn't understand what's happening inside her. She'll blame you, the marriage, the routine, anything but the truth. That her crisis isn't external, it's internal. Every new hobby, every night out, every flirtatious message is her desperate attempt to escape the fear of fading. She wants to feel alive again, not because her life is bad, but because her sense of identity is collapsing. She's addicted to being wanted, and when the world stops giving her that, she goes looking for it in places that will destroy everything she's built. Men watch their wives change and think it's sudden, but this slow erosion has been happening for years, buried under smiles and family photos. What you're seeing now is the eruption of long-suppressed panic. The truth is, she doesn't want a new man. She wants to feel like the woman she was when every man wanted her. That's why reasoning with her won't work. You're trying to fix something that isn't broken in the relationship. It's broken in her self-image. She's not rebelling against you, she's rebelling against time. And time always wins. That realization terrifies her, so she grasps for any illusion of control she can find, even if it means burning her life down in the process. This is the identity collapse, the silent implosion that turns loyal wives into strangers and strong marriages into battlegrounds. 2. The validation addiction. When a woman loses her sense of youth, she doesn't just feel older, she feels irrelevant. And relevance to her has always been tied to being desired. The attention she once took for granted becomes the drug she can't live without, and when it's gone, withdrawal hits hard. You see, for most of her adult life, she's been high on validation. Every compliment, every lingering glance, every man's attention reinforced that she mattered. It wasn't vanity, it was survival. The world taught her that beauty was her power, and attention was her proof of worth. When those things fade, she starts to panic. It begins subtly. She posts more photos online, updates her wardrobe, joins new social circles. She tells herself she's just rediscovering her confidence, but what she's really chasing is that old feeling of being wanted. The irony is that your devotion, your years of loyalty, your consistent love, all of it mean less to her now because it's predictable. The same affection that once made her feel secure now feels like background noise. She wants to be chosen again, not by obligation, but by excitement. That's why a simple compliment from a stranger can light her up more than a decade of your commitment. Your words are expected. His are spontaneous. Your love feels safe. His interest feels dangerous, and danger makes her feel alive. The validation addiction is powerful because it's emotional and chemical. Every new compliment releases dopamine, the same pleasure chemical tied to desire and excitement. Over time, her brain becomes conditioned to seek that rush again and again, just like an addict chasing a high. And the more she feeds this need, the less satisfied she becomes at home. You'll notice her scrolling through her phone constantly, chasing likes and comments. You'll notice how she suddenly starts caring about her appearance in ways she hasn't for years. It's not about impressing you, it's about reviving the version of herself who used to be admired. When she's alone, she replays those tiny validation moments in her head, not because she wants another man, but because she wants to feel like she still matters. But the danger is that once she finds consistent validation from one particular source, a coworker, a trainer, an old friend, it transforms from a harmless thrill to emotional dependence. That man becomes her mirror, reflecting back the illusion that she's still irresistible. And from there, her loyalty begins to fade. Not because she stopped loving you, but because your love doesn't give her that same intoxicating spark. You become safety, and he becomes significance. The validation addiction blinds her to the destruction it's causing. She'll rationalize her actions, telling herself she deserves to be happy, that she's just rediscovering her confidence. But what she's really doing is chasing the ghost of her younger self, hoping someone else can make her feel alive again. And that chase, once it starts, rarely stops until everything she built is gone. 3. The mirror war. Every woman eventually faces a moment when her reflection becomes her enemy. It's subtle at first, a hint of age around the eyes, a softness where firmness once was, a shadow of what used to draw endless attention. She notices it before you do, and once she does, she can't unsee it. Every morning mirror check becomes a silent war between who she was and who she's becoming. You might think it's just vanity, but it runs much deeper. That reflection isn't just about looks, it's about identity. For years, her reflection confirmed her power. It reminded her she was desired, admired, and envied. That face was her passport to validation. But when time starts to alter it, she feels robbed. She's not mourning beauty, she's mourning control. The mirror stops showing her the woman the world adored and starts revealing a stranger she doesn't want to accept. This realization doesn't happen overnight. It festers. It seeps into her moods, her choices, her behavior. You'll notice her spending more time getting ready, more money on treatments, more energy chasing youth. Every serum, every gym session, every photo filter is another battle in her war with reality. She's trying to freeze time, to delay the inevitable, to silence that voice whispering, "You're fading." The cruel part is that no matter how hard she fights, time keeps winning, and that defeat feels personal. So she projects her frustration outward. Suddenly, you become part of the problem. She looks at you and sees what time has done to both of you, but where you might accept it, she resents it. Your calm acceptance of aging feels like mockery to her panic. It's not that she wants to be young again, it's that she wants to feel wanted again, the way she did when youth made her desirable without effort. So, she seeks proof she still has it. The compliments from strangers, the attention from men, the social media feedback, all become her new mirrors, each one temporarily replacing the real one she now hates. And every time she gets that attention, she feels a rush of relief, a fleeting win in the mirror war. But like any drug, the high fades quickly. Soon she needs more validation, more excitement, more proof she's still powerful. And in that pursuit, she starts drifting further from you. What used to be shared laughter becomes silence. What used to be intimacy becomes distance. You'll notice it not in what she says, but in what she avoids, the way she no longer looks at you the same way, the way her affection feels rehearsed, the way her body is present but her heart is elsewhere. The mirror war isn't about beauty, it's about survival. When she loses control of how the world sees her, she loses control of how she sees herself. And until she finds a way to make peace with that reflection, no amount of love or reassurance from you will ever be enough. 4. The nostalgia trap. When a woman begins slipping into emotional decline, she often turns backward, not forward. Nostalgia becomes her refuge, a way to escape the mirror and the present reality that makes her uneasy. You'll hear it in the way she starts talking about her past, the sparkle in her voice when she mentions her younger days, the subtle warmth when she recalls her exes, the sudden laughter at memories she once dismissed. What she's really doing isn't reminiscing, it's rewriting. She's trying to relive the years when she felt alive, beautiful, and wanted without effort. That nostalgia is dangerous because it distorts the truth. The mind romanticizes the past, polishing away the pain and exaggerating the thrill. The wild nights that were once exhausting now seem exhilarating. The relationships that ended badly suddenly feel passionate and deep. Her brain is feeding her highlights of her youth, and each memory reminds her of what she's lost: attention, excitement, desire. The husband she has now represents everything routine. The man she once was with represents everything spontaneous. Even if her memory of him is false, the feeling it gives her is real, and that feeling is addictive. She doesn't crave her ex or her past. She craves who she was in those moments, the center of attention, the object of desire, the woman who turned heads. That's why nostalgia is such a powerful psychological drug. It convinces her that happiness is behind her instead of in front of her. The more she indulges it, the more disconnected she becomes from the life she's built. She starts comparing her present reality with her glorified past, and reality always loses. That's when she begins seeking reminders of who she used to be: old friends, old photos, even old flames. She'll say she's just curious, just catching up, but it's not curiosity, it's longing disguised as reconnection. Nostalgia makes her restless. It whispers, "You settled too early. You gave up too much. You still have time." Those thoughts grow louder with every wine night with her divorced friends, every motivational post about starting over, every story about women who found themselves after leaving. Soon, she starts to see her marriage not as a foundation, but as a cage. She convinces herself that she's missing out on life, that she sacrificed her identity for stability, and that belief gives her the justification she needs to rebel. What began as harmless reflection becomes emotional distancing. She starts comparing her husband not to other men, but to her own past fantasies. He can't compete because he's real, and reality is never as glamorous as memory. Nostalgia turns her marriage into a backdrop for her inner rebellion, and by the time you realize she's living in the past, she's already planning a future without you. 5. The emotional rebellion. When a woman feels trapped between fading youth and stagnant routine, something inside her snaps. It's not always loud. Sometimes it begins with silence, the kind that hides resentment behind polite smiles. She starts breaking rules she once created, ignoring your texts, withholding affection, staying out longer than usual. Each small act feels like freedom, a rebellion against everything that reminds her she's no longer the woman she used to be. She's not rebelling against you directly. She's rebelling against the version of herself she's become. The mother, the wife, the responsible woman. The one who's needed but no longer desired. Loved but no longer exciting. She wants to feel reckless again. Unpredictable. Untamed. The rebellion gives her that illusion, even if it destroys the peace she once begged for. Emotionally, this stage is volatile. You'll notice her mood swings more sharply, her tone colder, her patience thinner. Small disagreements turn into emotional storms because deep down, she's testing her power again. She wants to know if she can still control the emotional rhythm of the relationship, if she can still pull your attention and reactions the way she used to. When she senses you withdrawing, she panics. When she senses you chasing, she feels power. That's the emotional tug-of-war she thrives on during rebellion. It's not about logic, it's about emotion. She's chasing the adrenaline of uncertainty. Predictability feels like death to her, so she manufactures chaos just to feel alive. You'll notice how she becomes drawn to things that represent independence. New hobbies, new friends, new circles that make her feel young and spontaneous again. She'll say she's growing, finding herself, focusing on self-care. But what she's really doing is building a world where she doesn't have to be accountable to anyone. Every time she posts a picture that's more revealing, every time she ignores a message from you, every time she flirts subtly in conversation, it's an emotional protest. It's her way of saying, I still have power. But rebellion always comes with collateral damage. The more she fights for her independence, the more she subconsciously sabotages the relationship. She doesn't realize that in trying to reclaim her sense of self, she's dismantling the foundation that once protected her. The love, the stability, the loyalty you offer, those things start to feel suffocating when her mind is set on breaking free. And yet, in her quiet moments, guilt seeps in. She knows she's being unfair, but she can't stop. The rebellion feeds her ego while starving her soul. She'll oscillate between pushing you away and pulling you close, between cold detachment and sudden affection. To her, this emotional chaos feels like passion. To you, it feels like confusion. That's how rebellion traps both of you. The woman you loved becomes unpredictable, not because she hates you, but because she's at war with herself. She's trying to resurrect the parts of her that died quietly in routine, and in doing so, she risks destroying everything that ever made her feel safe. 6. The emotional replacement. After the rebellion comes the void. Once she's distanced herself from you emotionally, she starts craving connection again, but not with you. This is where the emotional replacement begins. She won't call it that, of course. She'll say it's just a friend, someone she can talk to, someone who understands her. But what's really happening is a psychological transfer. The emotional energy that once belonged to you is now being redirected elsewhere. It might start as harmless conversations, shared frustrations, mutual empathy, but every message, every phone call, every private moment of vulnerability becomes a brick in the wall separating her from you. She doesn't realize she's crossing boundaries because the comfort feels too good. That new man makes her feel seen again, and in her mind, that justifies everything. She tells herself it's innocent because she hasn't done anything physical. But emotional betrayal often cuts deeper than physical infidelity. He becomes the one she goes to for validation, advice, and comfort. You become the one she avoids. She laughs with him the way she used to with you, tells him things she stopped telling you, and over time, her loyalty shifts, first emotionally, then mentally, and eventually, physically. The replacement fills the emotional emptiness her rebellion created. She's not necessarily looking for love. She's looking for reflection. She wants to see herself through the eyes of someone who doesn't remind her of her insecurities or her past mistakes. The new man sees her as exciting, mysterious, desirable again. And that version of herself is intoxicating. The more she invests in that emotional connection, the less she tolerates you. Everything you say begins to irritate her. Your love starts to feel like pressure. Your presence feels heavy. It's not because you changed, it's because her emotional anchor has shifted. You're no longer her source of comfort. You're her reminder of who she's trying to escape. The conversations become shorter, her affection fades, and her patience disappears. You'll start feeling the disconnection long before she admits it. What used to be love becomes tolerance. What used to be passion becomes obligation. And yet, she'll still keep you around because she hasn't completely detached. The replacement isn't always about leaving. Sometimes it's about creating an emotional safety net before she does. She needs to feel secure in someone else's attention before she can justify walking away from yours. That's why she won't tell you about him until it's too late. By the time you discover it, she'll already be emotionally gone. And here's the bitter truth: she won't see it as cheating. In her mind, she'll frame it as finally being happy or feeling understood. What you see as betrayal, she sees as healing. But that healing is built on deception. Emotional replacement gives her temporary validation, but it destroys trust, intimacy, and respect. Once that emotional bond with another man is formed, getting her back becomes almost impossible. She's no longer fighting for your relationship. She's fighting to protect the illusion that she's happier without you. And by then, no amount of love or effort can compete with the fantasy she's built in her mind. 7. The awakening and the cost. Every emotional spiral reaches a breaking point, and for most women, it's not when they leave. It's when the illusion collapses. The awakening comes quietly, often after the excitement fades and the attention she once craved no longer fills the void. The new man who once made her feel seen starts to show flaws. The validation that once gave her life now feels shallow. The thrill of rebellion turns into exhaustion. She looks around and realizes she traded stability for stimulation, love for attention, meaning for noise. That's when the guilt starts to whisper, the same guilt she buried under self-justification. She remembers the man who was patient with her moods, loyal through her silence, and consistent when her emotions weren't. The same man she thought was boring now represents peace, the peace she destroyed chasing excitement. But by the time she realizes it, too much damage has been done. You're no longer available the way you once were, emotionally or spiritually. The wall she built to protect her ego now traps her inside it. She'll tell herself she made the right choice, that she grew from the experience. But at night, when the house is quiet and no one's watching, the truth catches up. She doesn't miss the man she met in rebellion. She misses the version of herself that used to feel whole beside you. That's the cruel irony of the awakening. It restores her clarity but costs her everything. You can see it in her eyes when she speaks to you again. There's remorse there, but also pride. She won't admit the full truth because that would mean facing what she lost. So she stays in denial, convincing herself that everything happens for a reason, even as she silently wishes she could undo what she's done. The awakening doesn't bring peace immediately. It brings awareness. She realizes that all the external validation, all the attention, all the emotional replacements were just distractions from a deeper wound, the inability to love herself without constant approval. The truth hits hardest when she understands that no amount of attention can replace genuine connection. By then, she's learned the most painful lesson of all, that the love she destroyed trying to feel alive was the very love that could have grounded her. Some women never recover from that realization. They move from man to man, searching for the same spark, never realizing that what they're missing isn't him, it's themselves. And the men who once tried to save them, they become ghosts in her memory, reminders of a loyalty she couldn't appreciate until it was gone. The awakening is brutal, but it's fair. Life always forces reflection, even if it's too late to rebuild what was broken. In the end, every emotional unraveling comes full circle. What began as a search for freedom ends as a confrontation with truth. The woman who once sought validation, rebellion, and attention discovers that none of it heals the emptiness inside. The men she chased only reflected temporary excitement. The man she abandoned reflected real love. When the noise dies down and the illusions fade, she's left with the quiet ache of regret, a kind of pain that no distraction can silence. For the man, the lesson is harder but cleaner. You learn that you can't compete with her illusion of herself. You can love deeply, remain loyal, and stay grounded, but once she starts battling her own reflection, your love becomes collateral damage. The key is to protect your peace, not your pride. Her awakening isn't your failure, it's her reckoning. In time, she'll understand the difference between being admired and being valued, between being desired and being loved. But by then, you'll have learned that saving her was never your role. Your role was to see the truth early, to step back when her chaos began, and to let her learn what every woman eventually must, that real freedom begins when the illusion ends.